Hi, so this is Emily usually for Team Healthcare, a new podcast, and we're looking into all things health, well-being, and mental health when it comes to working in healthcare. And today I'm going to be interviewing with Safiya Omosanya, who is currently a behavioural health coach, helping people with anxiety and depression, but has worked as an occupational therapist for many years. So, hi, Safiya. It's good to have you here today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So do you want to start off telling me a little bit about your story? I know that you've mentioned that you've struggled with anxiety and depression.
Yeah. So let me just kind of start, I would say, at 6 years old, when I was the oldest kid at a preschool that my sister was attending, and I was like their little helper. And I remember having to do number two. And I remember being afraid because it was like nap time. And I remember being afraid to ask to go to the bathroom.
Mm.
So I remember laying in the cot and thinking, okay, if I just go, then I'm thinking, oh, it's just gonna be, you know how with babies in diapers, there's just this little. And when everything is over, I'll just go to the bathroom and just get the little. This is what my 6-year-old mind was thinking. Well, it didn't work like that. It was a complete disaster, just like everywhere. And all of a sudden, everyone is like, we smell something. What, and they're sniffing around. They're like, not our helper. And it was just so humiliating. And everybody kind of went back, told my sister, and they got back like all around the school, what had happened with me, right? So I wanted to start off with that story because I was this quiet little girl who was awkward and just never really felt like she fit into this world. So I kind of carried that with me. And then when I got to junior high, that's where the kids can be really cruel. And I was quiet and, like I said, awkward, and what I would consider having, very low self-esteem, didn't think highly of myself. So that kind of made me a magnet to the bullies. So I used to get teased every single day at school. And from that was, I think I was around by this time 12. So that experience, and I never told anybody because I was too embarrassed to tell anybody. So I just kind of dealt with it, on a daily basis, which is traumatizing. And so then fast forward a few years later, when I get to like high school, I had like full-blown social anxiety. So anytime because I had there was an incident that happened when I was 12 years old, where when I walked in class, this one guy, kind of, he said I looked like a fish. And he went, "Here's fish." Like, there's a man named Johnny Carson. They used to say, "Here's Johnny," or something like that. And so he was like, "Here's fish," and the whole class was laughing at me, right? So after that, I kind of lost all faith in humans. So anytime I would walk into a room, or anywhere, I thought people were laughing at me. So just debilitating social anxiety. I still don't even know how I got through that, especially not discussing or telling it with anybody, just kind of going through this on my own for many years. And I remember when I made it through high school. I don't know how with such social anxiety, but I did. I kind of became a chameleon and just kind of tried to fit in, and if people was like, "Oh, the sky is red," I'd be like, "Yeah, it sure is." Just kind of just to fit in and get along, to try to make my life a little easier. So, got to went to college, and ended up going for occupational therapy when I was in college. And it was very difficult because we had to do all these presentations, and I was like, oh my God, like, even before the occupational therapy program, I dropped a lot of classes when I saw we had to do a lot of presentations. So I was like, I just can't do it. When you got into the program, we had to do so many, and it was just difficult. I ended up developing fibromyalgia and thyroid issues or whatever, because I was just under so much stress and anxiety with just knowing that I had to do the presentations, and then everything has to be perfect. Like, I didn't want to be one of those people that was just like reading from note cards or so I would have to memorize the presentations so that I did not have to look at anything. So there was so much pressure that I put on myself to like be perfect, to make sure my presentations were perfect. And then I always had a friend in class where I would be like, okay, do me a favor. When I'm doing my presentation, I'm going to look at you, but don't look at me. Look away so that I can just look at you. That way I'm not completely freaking out and don't like lose everything that I've memorized, right? So that was kind of how life was for me. It was very debilitating and small. And so when it came time when it's getting close to graduating from occupational therapy school, the anxiety was so great, and the fear of like getting out there in the workplace. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. So I actually kind of messed up on one of my clinicals, probably subconsciously. So I didn't graduate with my class. I had to get an extra semester kind of to buy me some time. And then when I finally, you know what, but it actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it actually was a blessing in disguise, because when I did this one clinicals at this place, because at the time occupational therapists could, and we still can, but it's not as common, but work in mental health. And so the one clinicals that I went on, it was a place, and they just so happened to it was for mentally ill patients. And I had to attend a meeting, and the meeting was from people in pharmaceutical sales, and they were selling Paxil, which was for social anxiety. So I didn't know I had social anxiety at the time. So they had a list of 25 things to, do I have social anxiety? Here's the 25 questions. I had 24 on the list. So that at least gave me a diagnosis, because I didn't know what the heck was wrong with me. I remember asking my friends, when you walk into a room full of people, do you feel like everybody's watching? Do you feel awkward? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that at least gave me a diagnosis. So I now that I'm even having this conversation, I'm like, okay, guess that was meant to happen. So at least I knew I had a diagnosis. So then when I finally graduated and got out there and was working, it just got really bad. And not only did I have social anxiety, but I also had like generalized anxiety. So I worried about everything. Nowadays we have, what is that? Like maps on our phones that get us to places. Then we didn't have that. Okay. So I would, if I needed to go somewhere, I don't care if it was an hour and a half away, I needed to drive there the night before so to make sure that I got there. Like just extremely worried about everything, just anxious about everything. And then on top of, um, being around people and performance and eyes on me and all of that. So I started working and I'm out in the field. It's really bad. And I'm just thinking about just like quitting. And I remember thinking I didn't never like the taste of alcohol. And I was like, if I like the taste of alcohol, I might need to get me some drinks to loosen up or something, because I can't go on like this. Like, how, this is so debilitating. And I don't know. I just decided to go see a psychiatrist and to get on some medication to help me deal with it, because I don't think I could just go on like that. It was so bad. And it got to the point where at work I wasn't hardly drinking any water because I didn't want to have to go to the restroom, because going to the restroom, there was a lot of people around it. And so it just was really bad. So got on medication, and that was super helpful for me. And did that for 2.5 years until, I ended up getting married and getting pregnant, and I had to go off the medication. So went off the medication. I was okay. And then after I had the baby, I can't say I had postpartum depression. I can't say that. Or maybe I did. I don't know. I just know that everything just kind of came rushing back, all of my issues and everything like that, especially after having a kid. So I was just like, okay, here I am. I'm, married, and I'm living the life that they say you're supposed to have. I have a new car, and I have a home, and I have a husband, and I have this new baby, and I just am miserable. And I'm just like, I can't continue like this. All right. And I started just praying, like I need some help. And I happened to see at the time they had infomercials when it came on TV, and they sold stuff on these infomercials. And there was one that came on, and it was about, the title was Attacking Anxiety and Depression. And it was like a home study course. And I was like, oh, let me look into this. So I said, and it was a money back guarantee. So I said, okay, cool. If it doesn't work, I can get my money back. And I started going through that program. It was like a cognitive behavioral therapy program. And I started going through that program. It was a 12-week home study program. And I dove into it, did all the things, and started to feel better. Because I had a lot of what they call stinking thinking. So I started to, feel better after that time. And I've been kind of on a path of self-development since then. So that was, let's see, when I don't even know the years. I'll just say I was around 31 or 2, and I just made 49. So I've been on this journey for many years, and things have, I continue to grow and improve. And in 2012, I was introduced to a technique called emotional freedom techniques. You heard of EFT tapping?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Oh my goodness. So that was like life-changing for me in so many ways. Because it really, like with the CBT, which is great to kind of check your thoughts and some of the things that you're thinking and reframe them. But after a while, it can be exhausting trying to reframe every single thought, because mine were all negative. So that took a lot of bandwidth. So EFT kind of helped me to be able to bring up everything, give it a voice, tap through these, meridian points, and have relief. So that was, life-changing for me. And so much so that I got trained in it, and then I started using it with patients in occupational therapy. And then I taught it, did like CEU training to other healthcare professionals, and did like 12 state speaking tour and kind of taught it because I was just so passionate and about it, and it's been life changing for me. And so I think I was telling you, I think that was like 2016 where I did my first speaking tour, and then again in 2018, and then I started just kind of teaching EFT, so going to different healing centers and just people coming to me through referrals and things like that. And then in 2020 is when I got into behavioral health coaching. So I now work with people who have anxiety and depression, and I'm able to take everything that I've learned on my journey and be able to really help other people. And within the last 2 years, I've been diving deep into nervous system regulation, which, EFT definitely can help to regulate the nervous system. At the particular time when I got trained in it, it was kind of like a newer thing, and or just coming out, I should say, because it actually was in the 90s when it first came out. People are really getting it now, but in 2012 people still had never heard of it. But now that I understand that things a little bit more as far as the nervous system, and people who suffer from like anxiety and depression, there's a dysregulation of their autonomic nervous system, and being able to and that's connected also to physical ailments, because like I said, for me, I ended up with fibromyalgia, because being in such that fight or flight for so long, my system just kind of shut down. So it's that's all connected. So that's kind of what I've been diving into now, and really using EFT as far as to bring in safety, because that's what happens when our nervous system gets dysregulated, is there's no safety felt in the system. So using EFT a little bit different now is what kind of what I'm doing now. So with myself and the clients that I work with. Yeah.
So it sounds like you've struggled for a very, very long time, and you've found something that's worked for you and decided to help other people by sharing that, not just doing that with patients, but wow, you've been on a speaking tour and everything. You're really sharing that with the world, and that's amazing. And do you find that having your own personal experience of mental health struggles helps you to help those with mental health struggles of their own?
Oh, 100%. Because I really don't think that you could fully, like, just with maybe book knowledge, it might be a little bit, when you can actually put yourself in that person's shoes. And I've been there, and I know, and here's some things that you can do to shift. It makes a big difference. And I think too that the clients can like feel that, like I'm with them, like I got it, Yeah.
Yeah. And I know myself from helping people with anxiety, I don't normally self-disclose about my issues of the past. But when anyone ever says, this sounds really stupid, it's so stupid, why am I thinking like this? I have to sort of feel like I have to step in. It's like, no, you're not being stupid. To you, this is life and death. That's the way your brain's working. I've had anxiety, and believe you me, I understand how terrifying it is, because you feel like you're going to die in some situations. So I think having somebody who genuinely understands that can be really helpful. Whereas someone who hasn't maybe got that experience would just be like, oh, come on, it's just anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, it's not just anxiety.
Yeah, they don't get it.
No.
Yeah. And I want to say too, just, while we're here talking about this, some of the things that I learned is that, and in my particular case for me, my nervous system was dysregulated, early on, but really, if you had a caregiver And then my mother, and I'm in her womb, and and they have a dysregulated nervous system. You can inherit your parents, your mom's dysregulated nervous system. And so that's what happened is through intergenerational trauma is what they call it. Where that's how I was 6 years old and not speaking out, because I know when I would tell people my story, they thought, well, what happened in her house that she was 6 years old and she couldn't speak out? Like, was it not safe? Well, in my house, it was, but in both my parents' home, it was not safe. And they grew up in violent homes.
Yeah.
Okay. Where they couldn't self-express. And so therefore, if you, especially with the mother, is carrying all of this unresolved trauma in her body, the kids are going to pick it up. And then through nurture as well, just, having my dad having severe anxiety because of the way his upbringing was. And then my mom had depression. And for me, my depression was mainly coming from just feeling out of control with the anxiety and, getting to the point where I just felt like hopeless. Like, how can I go on like this? That's kind of where mine came from. But I had, a mom who was depressed and a father who had anxiety. And they both had what is called high adverse childhood experiences, their childhood. So I just want to talk about that because I think people because it's so common nowadays. A lot of people have anxiety nowadays. Like telling you, I work with so many people. I got a client now that's 81 years old, which is like amazing that she's getting help, and different men and that are getting help as well. So I'm happy about that. We're moving in different times. It's not so much as stigma. People are getting help now, which is amazing. But where it's coming from is not just coming through osmosis. It's either, in my case, intergenerational trauma, or there's some, whether the person themselves has experienced their own childhood traumas. And when I say traumas, it doesn't even have to be like major. Even for me with bullying is a trauma. Anytime your nervous system is taken into that fight or flight response where there's that lack of safety. And then in my case, I didn't talk to anybody about it. Now, why didn't I? Subconsciously, I think my parents couldn't handle it, right? They just, not that they were bad people, but they just weren't safe. For me, I didn't feel a safety to go and discuss that with them, right? Because of their own stuff that they were dealing with. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, that we're not just struggling mentally just through osmosis. There's reasoning behind it, whether it's intergenerational trauma or whether one has experienced adverse childhood experiences in their childhood. It just doesn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of research at the moment as well into epigenetics. So we've got genetics, which is if we're stressed, to get switched on, and it increases the sensitivity of our stress response. So if your parents have had that switched on, then that's going to get passed down to you.
Absolutely.
So if you think about it, we're living with the stress of generations and generations before us. So it's no wonder that so many people have got anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing, what I found in the clients that I work with, and I mean, even myself, because again, we're in different times, is being able to be with emotions. When I was younger, like I said, I didn't even feel safe. I don't even know what I did when I felt strong emotions, but I did not take it to, my parents because, they couldn't handle it. So there was no modeling of what do you do with these big sensations that come up? What do you do with them? Right. So then we suppress them, or in my case, I would go into my head and spiral, and intellectually think them, but there are sensations. And so that's another reason why people have such a hard time when we feel those sensations of anxiety. It's like, oh, whoa. I can't, I don't know what to do with this, because, no one modeled or showed us what to do. It was either, shut up. This is some of the things that my clients have said. It's like, shut up, suck it up, or you're okay, or even just trying to, here's a lollipop, but, and so not being able to like fully be with them and process them. And so, even for myself, I have 3 daughters, and my oldest 2, one is 20, one is 17, and one is 10. And when I first learned EFT, the way I was using it, when they're like, oh, they were in distress. Okay, come on, let's tap. Like, let's get rid of this, right? Because I want you to feel better, right? So well-meaning, but it's just they weren't able to be like, oh, okay, these emotions are okay, and I can be with these sensations and let them process. Now, my 10-year-old is a different story, okay? When she's crying or she's upset, I'm validating, I'm letting her be with them so that they can naturally move through, and she's not afraid of big sensations, because emotions are chemicals in the body. Okay. That's, we will label them as I feel sad, but it first starts as chemicals released in the body, and is these sensations, and just letting her be able to be with those without me coming and interfering. That way she won't be afraid of these sensations. So that's another thing that contributes to the anxiety and depression, is suppressing all of these big emotions, and then they just kind of held down, and then it comes up, and that's where we have panic attacks and anxiety attacks and all of those. So I just wanted to bring that up as well, something that I found.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason behind me doing these podcast episodes is because there's so many people working in healthcare struggling with their mental health, but there's a stigma around it still. It's like, if you work in healthcare, you're not supposed to struggle. You're the strong one that looks after everybody else. So if there's somebody out there who's working in healthcare that's struggling at the moment, are there any words of hope that you can give them?
Yeah. First of all, again, we just didn't get, unless these are younger generation, and still younger generations ain't getting it either. Different times, we're moving into different times, but it's, to feel like there's a shame associated is so common. That's A. B, we just wasn't equipped with how to deal with it. And then there is hope. And I would say, look into checking what your ACEs score is, adverse childhood experiences, and kind of looking as, okay, is this something that I need to, get help with? And then looking at something called polyvagal theory, which is kind of learning about the nervous system, and just start kind of, working with the nervous system and getting that help. But there's nothing to be ashamed of at all. I work with so many different people. So again, the times that we're in much better times now, which is a good thing. So, but nothing to be ashamed of, because we just weren't equipped with the tools, back, I call it back in the day, like I'm so old, but that's what I'm saying nowadays. So yeah.
Similar age to me, we're not old.
Exactly.
Okay, doke. I know you've mentioned that you do EFT a lot. Is there any links that people can follow if they want to look more into that?
I would say if anybody had any questions or anything for me, the best place to reach me would be on LinkedIn under my name. I don't know if you'll have my name anywhere posted, but just look up my name, Safiya Omosanya, and catch me on LinkedIn.
Yep, I'll put a link in the notes to your LinkedIn profile.
Awesome.
Okay, Safiya, so it's been absolutely lovely to speak to you today. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.